Hello everyone, Storm11 here. Today we'll be tracking a couple of systems over the next several days. The first system will be occurring later tonight. And it's going to bring a severe weather risk across parts of eastern Texas, far southeastern Oklahoma, far southwestern Arkansas, and that'll go into parts of Louisiana by early tomorrow morning. And right later tomorrow, your severe weather risk shifts into a good chunk of Florida as well, and that could continue into Wednesday as well. There's another system that we're keeping an eye on very closely here. Early to mid next week here, a strong low may come out of the Rockies, and that could bring in multiple severe weather risks across parts of the U.S. as well. Before we get started on this video, if you guys do like weather-related content, you can subscribe to my channel. We do this stuff here all the time on this channel. Plus, we'll have an update, more updates on some of these topics as well over the next couple of days, whenever it's necessary. Um, so definitely stay tuned for more updates as well. So we're gonna start with the watch warning advisory display. Really, it's mostly quiet here. You got a couple of red flag warnings out there in parts of the central U.S. Other than that, it's mostly quiet. But things are going to get more active later tonight for parts of this for parts of eastern Texas, even in the parts of Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana later today into tomorrow morning, where we do expect a severe weather risk in those areas as well. We're also expecting at some point, maybe in the next hour or so, a tornado watch or a severe thunderstorm watch to be issued. This is the Storm Prediction Center's best scale discussion. The risk for a large hail, damage to wind gusts, and a tornado or two should develop between 21Z or 23Z, which is later this evening. Watch issuance is likely in the next couple hours, and that was not too long ago um, as well. That's actually about an hour ago. So maybe some point in the next hour or so, they'll probably issue some type of watch in those areas as well. But this is their category risk outlook. There is still a slight risk for severe weather. It has been expanded to include more of eastern Texas, but not all of it just yet. That even includes a little bit more of western Louisiana as well. The 5% tornado risk did get expanded a little bit further south. The 5% tornado risk does include the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Plano, Texas, Garland, and also Richardson as well. Damage winds will be the main threat, but there could also be quite a bit of hail out there as well. I think the hails could be the primary threat actually. The hail will probably be the primary threat. That hatch area means that there's the potential for some significant hail, which could be at 2 inches in diameter or larger than that as well. So there could be some significant hail with some of these storms as well. There's going to be some strong updrafts out there later today. Here's tomorrow, March risk for parts of the Gulf Coast states. And here's day 3, got a March risk for parts of central and southern Florida as well. But let's go and talk about the severe weather risk later tonight. So we're going to start with the HRRR model. It has done a good job in the past, so we'll check out the reflectivity. And you can see here how fast these storms begin to blow up. Literally in like 1 hour, bam, we got storms already developing just south of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and more storms will likely form in the area as well. If you go to another hour, you can see here how quickly things really begin to develop as well. Here's another cluster of storms developing just to the south of that as well. And you can already tell some of these storms here, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, may have the chance to produce a very large hail as well. But you do notice here, they do have a short window of being discrete mode, and they may come together into a big squall line of storms. Well, not really a big squall line, but at least a big cluster of thunderstorms. And then at this point here, you get a more of a damage to wind type of event. And these are what continue to move to the southeast here across eastern Texas, and they'll eventually get into parts of western Louisiana by early tomorrow morning. And check that out. Really by in the middle of the night later tonight, we got a nasty Boeing segment all going in western Louisiana. That could be an indicator for some damage to winds as well. So you definitely have to pay attention to this big cluster of thunderstorms closely here because they have the potential to produce a widespread damage wind type of event as well. So that's also another thing we got to keep an eye on. But really by the early morning hours on Tuesday, things should begin to wind down, especially when showers and storms do develop out ahead of the main line as well, which will bring down the severe weather risk as well. Let's check out the environment here. We're going to start off with surface-based instability. Right now, the numbers are not very high, but we do expect these numbers to really increase, especially as you get later this afternoon. You got instability values generally 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram, which is supportive for severe weather. And of course, just getting into the overnight hours, those numbers do begin to decrease as expected there as well. So the instability is in place out there. Here's another way to look into Cape here, 0 to 3 kilometer Cape. And you can see here numbers are also pretty elevated out there as well. Let's check out the updraft helicity swaths. This kind of gives you an indication for any potential rotating storms. So you can see here quite a bit of updraft helicity swaths out there. Really in the green colors, that could be indicated for the potential for some weaker circulations. But when you get to those yellow colors, that's where you may have the potential for stronger circulations as well. So that could lead to an indication for maybe for some isolated tornadoes out there as well. So that's another threat we do need to keep an eye on very closely, is that isolated tornado risk. Here's another way to kind of look into this tornado risk or the favorable environment for it is the significant tornado parameter. You can see here numbers are not ridiculously high or anything like that. Generally it's between a 1 to 2, which that means conditions are favorable for tornadoes as well. It's wherever you get over a 2, that's that potential for strong tornadoes. And we really don't see much of any of that at all. There is some out there, but it's not very noticeable or anything like that. Well, let's kind of back this up just a little bit here. Let's kind of get it sounding in northeastern Texas here. So you can see here, there's a couple things going on here in the sounding here. First of all, your hodograph will be favorable for some tornadoes out there. Plenty of wind direction of height there between 700 millibars and 1,000 millibars. Dew point numbers are kind of on the lower end, but even with upper 50 dew points, that can still be favorable for some thunderstorms as well. When it comes to instability, not very high, but still supportive for some severe weather. Lap rates is one of the key factors to that large hail threat, including that significant hail risk as well. It's wherever you get at least a 7.5, that's where you kind of get the indication for some strong lap rates as well. And also, decent amount of wind shear. Storage to felicity values generally anywhere from 150 to 300 as well. So, pretty much the sounding here does favor for all hazards as well. As you get a little bit further south here, you can see here kind of a similar scenario here. You can definitely see here the elevated mixed layer, especially when you get to the upper levels. It's actually pretty strong as well. That could be a limiting factor as well. When you get a very strong elevated mixed layer, you can't really get a whole lot of thunderstorm development as well. That could be a failure mode as well. But there are favorable dew points as you get further south as well. Dew point of 63 as well. You also do notice there is a weak cap in the lower levels as well, which is also going to help prevent for thunderstorm development, but they'll likely erode into the overnight hours as well, so don't expect it to last very long. Lap rates are not as supportive as you get further to the north, but either way here, the sounding here will be favorable for all hazards as well. Most of the ingredients are in place for all hazards of severe weather with that sounding as well. You can see here how those conditions for favor for tornadoes still continues even into southeastern Texas as well, if those storms can stay organized as well. And I think that's pretty much it for tonight's event. So if you do live in eastern Texas and even for western Louisiana, definitely have to stay weather aware later today into the overnight hours as well. Be sure to have a way to give warnings as well if you do live in those areas as well. The severe weather risk does move into parts of the Gulf Coast states, mainly in southeast Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, and even for a good chunk of Florida as well. this is how the Hermon wants to present when it comes to convection. You can see here, this is going to be a big problem here if you want severe weather. It's widespread convection. That's what you do not want if you want severe weather. And this can be a big limiting factor as well. Whenever you have widespread convection, that can keep the environment a little bit more stable as well, especially if they're disorganized as well. So that could be another failure type of mode, as well as whenever you get widespread showers and thunderstorms out there as well. There might be decent amount of instability out there still left, which in this case here at Hermal does still show some instability out there. But if I'm correct, the wind shear it's kind of on the weaker side of things as well. So the thunderstorms out there are not going to be very organized. So the severe weather risk for parts of the Gulf Coast states is going to be pretty limited tomorrow as well. So that's something else to note as well. Now, severe weather risk could continue into southern Florida here into Wednesday as well. Pretty good amount of instability out there still going on as well. 2,000 joules per kilogram out there. Which, if you do look into the HERM model, the wind shear values may still be on the weaker side though, so that's also a limiting factor. But you can see here it's a little bit more clear out there as well. So we'll see how trends go when it comes to Wednesday severe weather risk for the southern half of Florida as well. But really, your limiting factor when it comes to severe weather will be wind shear. Wind shear will be lacking out there as well. So let's talk about Thursday into Friday, and there's still a lot of uncertainty here since yesterday here. So the GFS is still pretty consistent here. If the GFS is right, there could be a severe weather risk for parts of eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas, and the Ozarks region as well. But it's not a very big risk or anything like that. I don't see this being a very big risk. But getting into Friday here, the severe weather risk potential could make it into parts of the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley as well. But even with that, dew points are also a limiting factor with this as well. Dew point values are generally in the low to mid 50s, so that's going to be a limiting factor for the severe weather potential as well. But models are typically a little bit on the lower side when it comes to dew points. It would not surprise me if the GFS stays a little bit more consistent, then we might bring up those numbers just a little bit more, and that could lead to upper 50 dew points instead of low to mid 50s. So we'll have to wait and see what the trends with that. But not all the models agree with the GFS. Let's check out the European model. And you can see here, the European model is similar to yesterday here. It's a much weaker low, well above 1,000 millibars. You're talking about a low pressure system is generally 1,000 to 1,005, and it just gets a little bit weaker as it continues to move off to these. If the European model is correct, you're not going to see much way of severe weather out of this. You're just not going to see that. And really, to one way here to kind of think about it, like which one would be the outlier or anything like that. And the best way to kind of look at to that point of view is the ensembles. So let's check out the European ensembles, which is a mean of 50 members, or 51 I should say. And you can see here your low pressure system moves across Texas here by Thursday, so it's much further south already than the GFS. And you can see here it's actually pretty similar to the European model, but there are still some members out there that are a little bit closer to the 1,000 millibar mark as well. So there's a couple of members that are a little bit stronger than the others, but either way, it's not a very favorable setup for severe weather, as that low is pretty weak. However, for the GFS ensemble standpoint, it's actually similar to the GFS as well. It's a stronger low, it's further north, pretty decent placement here for severe weather for parts of the Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley for Friday. It also does not look too bad for Thursday as well. Could go over some of the same areas when it comes to that severe weather potential Thursday, like we are talking about today, as well. So for right now, the confidence for severe weather is pretty low. Still, not a very strong agreement with this yet. So we'll have to wait and see where the models trade towards. Either European model, European ensemble solution, or the GFS or GFS ensemble solution. The Canadian model's been jumping around. The latest run is leaning towards the European model, but then again, it's not been very consistent, so I won't really pay too much attention to that model. The ones you should pay attention to is the ones that are most consistent, which, GFS and European model have been very consistent with their own solutions. So we have to wait and see where the models trade towards next. But right now, the severe weather potential with this here is we'll just say it's pretty low at this time here. The confidence, I should say, is very low with this as well. But there's one other system here that we have a little bit more confidence with, and that's going to be early to mid next week. Really, after that system, things will stay a little bit quieter for most of the U.S., except for the western U.S. Out in the western U.S., you guys do have a storm system that moves in at that same time for next weekend, so that's going to be some good news for some folks that actually do need some precipitation out there as well for drought relief. And look at this for the GFS model. You got a strong low that comes out of the Rockies as well. And you can see here, maybe for that potential for severe weather in the warm sector, by Monday, you may have that potential for severe weather across parts of the plains here at that point. That'd be a classic severe weather setup for Tornado Alley right there. And possibly getting into Tuesday, it's much farther to the east, maybe across the Mississippi River Valley. And perhaps getting into Wednesday here, maybe a little bit further north, but not much way of confidence with that as well. But the models do show the evolution of this system here a little bit differently. Let's check out the European model. Pretty similar to GFS, you got a system that moves across the western US, and you can see here with the European model, if the European model were to be correct, there could be a severe weather risk for parts of the central and southern plains here on Monday. And then as you move off to Tuesday, your severe weather risk potential moves across parts of Dixie Valley up into parts of the Ohio Valley as well. That'd be a pretty large area as well. And maybe Wednesday, possibly getting into Wednesday, your severe weather potential might move in to parts in the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast at that point. So both models do show that potential for a multi-day severe weather event. First day beginning on Monday, possibly somewhere in the Tornado Alley region. Then by the next day, which is Tuesday, it might be somewhere in the Mississippi River Valley, maybe in the parts of the Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, maybe Dixie Valley as well. It may be Wednesday, maybe in the parts of the Northeast Mid-Atlantic. But that's just way out there, though. You got to realize one thing here, that this is nearly 10 days out. It will change, but there has been some consistency with the system here. And I do see potential if trends were to still continue. I could definitely see this potentially becoming a multi-day severe weather event. But you got to pay attention to trends very closely here as well. We can't get too much into detail with the system here as well. Let's check out some of the installment members, see what their thoughts on with the system here. And you know what? With the European ensembles, definitely some similarities. Beginning on Monday, you got a large cluster of models there in parts of the Central Plains here. You may see potential for severe weather in the warm sector. And as you move on to Tuesday, now this is where you start to get some uncertainty here. Look at the spread of the members here. You got members as far north as pretty much in the upper Midwest. That goes all the way down into eastern Texas and Louisiana. Very large spread, but really the mean has it over eastern Iowa, which takes it through the Midwest region as well. But you do notice with a lot of these members show a sub-1,000 millibar low. Most of them do. So that's an indication that this has the potential to become a pretty strong low as well as it moves through parts of the Central Plains and eventually through in the Midwest as well. That's another indication that this could turn out to be a decent severe weather maker as well, whenever you have a strong low like this. You can see as you move on to Wednesday, the spread is very large at that point as well. But either way, the European ensembles, I should say, does have a storm signal early to mid next week as well. Let's check out to the GFS ensembles. And you know what? It's also pretty similar. Takes it a little bit north, at least early on anyway. But you can see here, it also takes it through the Midwest. The mean is not very strong here because of the spread here. But you do see here that you still have members out there that are also under 1,000 millibars as well. So even the GFS is almost also indicates for that potential for a strong low as well. So really, regardless here, early to mid next week, this may be our next setup here to watch for severe weather. And this does have the potential to be a multi-day severe weather event. Beginning Monday could be somewhere in the parts of the plains or Torrey Alley. Next day could be in parts of the Mississippi River Valley, Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, or maybe Dixie Alley. We don't really know that yet. And maybe Wednesday, it could move into parts of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. It's way out there, but the possibility could be there as well. For right now, it is something to watch, and we'll have to monitor trends here very closely here as well. But anyways, guys, that's all for guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Guys, like this video, hit the like button. If you do like my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, put in the comment section down below. Alright, you guys questions. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.